would you assess this challenge match for Leinster heading down to Pretoria? Because we've kind of flagged it with a number of their players there, some of whom played well in the Champions Cup final, some of whom probably weren't at their best. We kind of know what they can do against the likes of Ulster, with greatest respect to Ulster. We know, like, in the URC knockout game, how good these players should be, how dominant they should be really against their opposition. How how would you sort of stack this test versus a Champions Cup knockout game, semi-final, final? The fact that it's at altitude, it's on the high veld, but also the fact that the Bulls are now going to be missing Curtly Aronson, they're already missing Kane Moody. I think Marcus Van Staden might be back, but I'm just wondering what you make of this challenge overall.
I know. Look, Leinster have to build it up as being, an incredible expedition to get to Pretoria and the challenge of getting back and all that stuff. But I just think there's no excuses here. It's just like you have the best team in the URC on paper. You have the most internationals. You've been able to rest them during the year as best you can. Obviously, some of them racked up a good bit of mileage, but you have been able to rest them. There's no distractions, and the Bulls aren't all that. Like, Munster have gone down there and beaten them when the Bulls had decided to send a second string to Northampton and had effectively an extra week's prep. So, as I said, Bennett will make them look very average. I just haven't seen them. They're a bit like the Stormers this year. There's just too many flaws in their performances, and has been. I know they got obviously a good seed in the end, but I haven't been massively overly impressed by them, to be honest. So I don't think. I think if Leinster lose there, it's a big failure on their part. They should be able to go there and win. The following week's a little bit different, but this is a game that Leinster, full strength Leinster have to win.
I'm intrigued by what you would make of the Bulls, Murray. I think they had the highest points difference in the URC regular season table. They scored like a record number of tries for themselves, and at times they have looked potent. Other times, including most recently against Benetton, where they really couldn't put them away, and it took a really strong defensive stand actually to force a knock on from Nacho Brex to get the job done. Is this a team that will actually pose Leinster some serious questions? Should we be looking at this through the prism of it being almost akin to like a Champions Cup semi-final or final, or are the Bulls maybe a little bit deceptive in their table position?
I think you have to treat it with the utmost respect and have an element of edginess to it. And you're going to altitude, and that's a challenge, and the atmosphere that'll be there. And there's some big units in that Bulls team, and certainly when they getting into a game, whether that be the scrum or just their physicality they're carrying, they're very good at doubling down and taking that. But they do give you opportunities. They do. Like, they don't strike me as the kind of classical or traditional Jake White team in many ways. Maybe all those stereotypes just weren't true, but I think of, really solid teams who don't give you a lot of access into the game, who don't give you turnover chances, whose defense is ultra watertight. But that's not really the case with this team, as we saw last weekend. Like, Benetton, to their credit, earned that opportunity, but I'd say the Bulls would feel they just allowed them back into the game at crucial times a little too easily, and needed the likes of Johan Goosen to produce moments of brilliance really to kind of guide them home. So I definitely think it's a good opportunity for Leinster to win on the road. What are they, 4-point favourites? That feels about right to me. It's certainly no gimme. It's going to take some serious doing, and it'll take another, I think, improved performance. But the stuff that we've discussed, some of the scores they put together, I think there'll be opportunity for a bit more of that. Even the James Lowe, the first one in the first half, where it's a really good multi-face try where they just fatigue Ulster into slipping off the tackle there with the inside pass from Byrne to Lowe, who's already carried over on the left-hand side powerfully and works his way to the right-hand side and finishes really strongly. I think there will be opportunity for that. I don't see the Bulls as oppressive a team as, say, Toulouse were on the Champions Cup final day, but it is a challenge, and it's a challenge just getting there. I think they're still on the way. They've had to figure out how to get there in a couple of different parties, and some backroom staff only arrived on Tuesday, and that kind of poses its own challenge. But that's probably good for Leinster, not to just have it all smooth and to have what could be an amazing trip for them. It really could be something special. That frontline group haven't done this trip, so it's paying the hole maybe when you're tired at the end of a long season, but in many ways it's cool as well, and they'll, I'm sure, embrace it with the right kind of attitude. So I think it'll produce motivate Leinster to another strong performance. And I definitely can see them winning. As I say, it's no fait accompli, but they're stronger than the Bulls in my mind.
They do look stronger on paper, particularly with the Bulls losing two of their more dynamic outside backs, guys who you would see as being real difference makers in like a proper home knockout game for them. And I guess like it's intangibles in the back of my mind that make this a little bit more competitive than it might be on paper. Murray mentions the travel. The fact that Loftus-Versfeld is going to be, I would say, close to full. Like Jake White has been putting out the call to action to their fans, like, please show up, we need you. But even if you have like 40,000 there, it's going to be loud. It's going to be a different kind of an atmosphere to a regular URC game. Nothing that Leinster's players won't be used to, but just that combination of things, it'll feel hostile. The fact you have such a long trip down there, the fact that Bulls are going to be up for it, fans are going to be up for it. Maybe those are kind of leveling factors. 4 points, as the bookies see it, isn't a lot ultimately, even though I think the three of us are actually confident that Leinster will get the job done.
Yeah, look, it's obviously a contest. I just and I accept that the travel and the home crowd, etc., make it more harder for Leinster. But I think 4 points. Like if 4 points is and bookies are usually are right a lot more often than I am. But I think Leinster win by more than that. I think they win by more than that. And I know that Bulls have a good power game. And I agree with you. I think them losing those two X factor backs has made them it will make them a little bit easier to shut down. And I think Leinster will go and do a job on them. Yeah, I look at the challenges. Leinster, unfortunately, when they've cracked under similar circumstances, so yeah, there's a doubt there, of course. But I just don't think the Bulls are as good as Toulouse or La Rochelle potentially could be, and that Leinster should be able to win this one.
If Leinster aren't at a really ideal pitch, though, the Bulls have the players and the rugby minds to really expose that. Like Goosen and Villy Leroux are obviously very clever rugby players. Even Leroux for the first try against Benetton, just spotting the backfield space. And I know it gets a good bounce, and Arnsa is a brilliant finisher, but he just sees things really well. And Goosen's the same. They've got some might, as Birch mentions, up front, and fresher faces like Cameron Hanakum at number 8, who's been really outstanding and looks like a massive prospect for South African rugby. There's a few big units in that front five. So that's the concern, I suppose, is if Leinster aren't able to, or if they get stressed by the occasion and there's wobbles in the game. I think the Bulls, especially with that home crowd and the edge that's just there with South African and Irish rugby at the moment, I think that becomes a really difficult place to be. But there's so many reasons on the other side for Leinster to feel confident about going and getting what will be a really big result and would give them a bit of bounce. Obviously, the challenge is getting back as well. It's not just getting over there, getting back potentially for a final. But this is a spot they've put themselves in with the regular season table, so they've got to make the best of it.